bottom of the Baltic Sea. Sea surveyors say they found what can only be described as the wreckage of a crashed spaceship.
An exploration team finds something fit for the X-Files during an expedition in the Baltic Sea.
A huge secret about aliens has just been uncovered from the depths of the Baltic Sea, and it's about to change everything scientists, archaeologists, and even historians know about our world. While on a research mission in the Baltic Sea, a team of researchers was gathering artifacts from the seabed when they saw the greatest shock of their lives. What did they see? Could it have been the remains of an underwater civilization? Join us as we explore how scientists' terrifying new discovery in the Baltic Sea is going to change everything. The Baltic Sea is one of the most studied brackish water systems in the world, as it has a well-integrated monitoring system that gives researchers and scientists room to data describing the temporal and spatial variation of its waters and drainage basin. It is also of great interest to historians, as it serves as the Hanseatic League's economic core, the great medieval trading group of northern European ports. The many names for the sea attest to its strategic position as a meeting point for several countries, and as a result it has a lot of stories, artifacts, and terrifying discoveries lost in the sea. Scientists had no idea that the Baltic Sea had such secrets until a strange object looking similar to a crashed UFO was found by a team of explorers known as the Ocean X team. An entire team of Swedish treasure hunters at Ocean X ventured around the seabeds mainly to find shipwrecks, but they were petrified at this unprecedented discovery. In fact, it looked so surreal that it became a puzzle to scientists, investigators, and even conspiracy theorists all across the globe. The actual design of this mysterious object stirred people's imaginations, as this crashed UFO is almost 60 feet long, and it dogged out a 650-foot-long trench in the Baltic seabed before it stopped at the edge of a precipice. People were still pondering the discovery and thinking about the probability of it being an actual crashed UFO or not until the Ocean X team gave the information that confirmed the crashed UFO. Stefan Hogeborn, a professional diver with Ocean X, confirmed it when he said that the crashed UFO still works. He said anything electric out there, including satellite phones as well, stopped working when we were above the object. Then when we got away about 200 meters, it turned on again. Sonar also discovered drag marks behind the crashed UFO, and geologist Steve Weiner says according to his tests, the structure is not a geological formation. Now, isn't that proof that this object discovered is some sort of alien tech? Another disconcerting yet intriguing discovery about this crashed UFO, also known as the Baltic Sea anomaly, is its striking resemblance to the Star Wars Millennium Falcon. And apart from that, the Baltic Sea anomaly was studied further, and it looks to be made of pieces of angular metal. This solidified the claims of it being a crashed UFO. However, not everyone believed that theory. Dennis Asberg, who discovered the crashed UFO alongside Mr. Lindbergh, said in a statement about how they made this terrifying discovery. He said the following: "There is a mountain, it could be 20 to 25 meters tall, with a canyon in the middle, and below it there are a lot of loose rocks. The trail starts from here. Actually, there are two trails. First, there is one that leads to this large circle, then another trail leads to the second object about 200 meters from the round circle. We found it at the same time as the circle, but we focused so much on the circle that we didn't have enough time to look at the other object," he said. He continued that they were astonished and puzzled when they found this crash site. They were thinking about what they had found at that time. They were sure there was a natural explanation until it proved to be an actual crashed UFO. "We wanted to look into it some more and decided to keep this totally quiet. We contacted geologists, marine biologists, and when they said they had never seen anything like this, of course more thoughts were triggered. It could be something really awesome that we found." Dennis Asperger also included some highly intriguing information that a structure that looks like a staircase leads to a dark hole with a second structure found nearby. As a result of this new information revealed by Asberg, new thoughts and speculations talked about what the object could be. Some had their point of view saying it could be an anti-submarine device left over from World War II, a battleship gun turret, or a flying saucer. But while the whole world was rambling about this terrifying UFO crash site, another weird phenomenon occurred. The weird thing that happened was a photo that showed a weird craft submerged in the Baltic Sea while white ripples surrounded it. This was found in the Baltic Sea about 30 miles off Stockholm, and a photo was released to confirm this weird existence. Immediately, military forces were called to action as the military commander immediately beefed up the number of units in the area, which have units with specialized sensors. Well, that was for the government. UFO websites, on the other hand, such as the latest UFO sightings, postulated that the object might be an unidentified submerged object, especially after the bizarre discovery that was found in the same Baltic Sea not too long ago. In fact, the question was also thrown out to the public, saying, could the mysterious Russian submarine actually be a Dutch sub, or is this another mysterious activity involving a USO? The site asked. Nigel Watson, an author of the UFO Investigations Manual, weighed in on this theory with the following statement. In the last 100 years, there has been a steady transition from seeing apparently terrestrial biological sea or lake monsters to seeing unidentified submarines or extraterrestrial aliens in their craft. Often what in the past was regarded as the red eyes of a water monster are now interpreted as the red lights of an unidentified submerged object. There are many sightings of UFOs flying into and out of our oceans, suggesting that these crafts have secret underwater bases they operate from. Concentrations of such sightings indicate bases in the Black Sea, North Sea, and off the coasts of Puerto Rico and California. As usual, though, not everybody had the same opinion about the same situation. Some of the people even waved off the idea of this being an extraterrestrial occurrence, as they had their hands pointed towards Russia. Russia, on the other hand, denied these allegations. Even a military spokesman noted that there are no extraordinary, let alone emergency situations involving Russian warships. So that could mean that there might actually be extraordinary things happening in the Baltic region. In fact, these extraordinary phenomena have been taking place since, especially when a ship from the Renaissance era was found deep intact in the depths of the Baltic Sea. How did that happen? Well, this was one of the never-before-seen discoveries because around the time the ship sank, Columbus was discovering and adventuring the New World. His fleet vanished long ago, but this Renaissance vessel reappeared recently, remarkably well preserved in the icy Baltic waters. The first hint of its existence came in 2009 when a sonar survey by the Swedish Maritime Administration found an anomalous blip on the Baltic Sea floor. Then, earlier this year, a robotic camera used by a commercial team surveying an undersea route for a natural gas pipeline illuminated not the gooey seabed but a mysterious hulk. Curious about what that could be, an international team of scientists lowered a pair of tethered robots to explore and document what turned out to be the Renaissance sailing vessel. This discovery was so wholesome that Rodrigo Pacheco Ruiz, the maritime archaeologist who led the investigation, was short of words. Eventually he commented saying, "It's amazing, we're still a little bit over the moon." The research team, including several doctoral students, found the ship lying intact, its hull well preserved from keel to deck, its masts and some rigging. Resting on deck, leaning against the main mast, was a small wooden boat for ferrying crew members to and from the larger ship. Various rare artifacts were also seen aboard the ancient wreck, including a wooden bilge pump and a capstan, a wide cylinder used for winding up lengths of rope. Dr. Pacheco Ruiz said the ship's anchor was also visible, and its presence helped date the wreck to the late 15th or early 16th century. The craft was probably a merchant vessel rather than a warship, although it had swivel guns. According to an expedition statement, the swivel guns found aboard the ship proved as a testament of the tension at the time. In an interview, Dr. Pacheco Ruiz said the wreck was 52 to 60 feet long. The Santa Maria, the flagship of Columbus's expedition, is thought to have been roughly 60 feet long, with the expedition's other ships, the Nina and the Pinta, closer to 50 feet. Records indicate that the Santa Maria had 52 crew members and the other two ships had 18. Since the wreck was that length as well, it could have been part of Columbus's fleet. Even though the name and origin of the lost Baltic ship have not yet been identified, the maritime archaeologists call it Okänt Skepp, Swedish for unknown ship. Dr. Pacheco Ruiz and his team deliberately kept its location secret to deter treasure hunters and scavengers. However, they plan to return to the Baltic site for another round of exploration, in particular to retrieve a wooden plank. Dr. Pacheco Ruiz noted that laboratory analyses could date ancient wood within a year of its human acquisition. This would help pinpoint exactly when the ship was built and put to sea. It's awesome to see how history is slowly being recovered and rewritten in the best way, even though some have been terrifying. And another historic discovery made in the Baltic Sea was the ship that sank on its maiden voyage, Vasa. Vasa was the world's most high-tech warship when it set sail almost 400 years ago. Today it's a resource for archaeologists and naval historians, and a cautionary tale for those who seek to design technology. The story of what happened to the ship has gone down in history, despite being one of the Swedish Navy's biggest achievements and among the most spectacular warships ever built at the time. Vasa sank within 20 minutes of setting sail on its maiden voyage in 1628. The warship survived the first blast of wind it encountered on its maiden voyage in Stockholm Harbor, but the second gust of wind spelled doom for the ship. The sinking of Vasa took place nowhere near an enemy. In fact, it sank in full view of a horrified public assembled to see off their navies and Europe's most ambitious warship to date. Vasa was a vast, beautifully decorated ship. It was covered in wooden carvings that told stories about the Swedish royal family, and most importantly, the King Gustav Adolf II. He had ordered for the ship to be built and was also there to watch in horror as it sank. Although there have been several theories explaining that the ship had been unstable, but the reasons behind the instability have remained a point of debate over the centuries. An archaeologist who has studied the ship's remains exclusively believes that it sank due to a very heavy gun deck. This happened as a result of the ship being designed and built by someone who had no experience building a well-armed ship. It also didn't help that the king rushed the building process. Although Vasa didn't work out well for Gustav Adolf II, it's become a boon for archaeologists. The cold, oxygen-poor water of the Baltic Sea protected Vasa from the bacteria and worms that usually ate wooden wrecks, as about 95% of Vasa's wood was intact when Sweden raised the wreck in 1961. Although keeping the wooden structures stable while raising the ship proved to be a huge engineering feat, it was managed. Preserving the vessel was a process that took almost 3 decades. Unfortunately, there wasn't much room for archaeology during that time, but now that the ship is stable, investigators have worked to uncover why it sank. Beyond the simple engineering problems, the human question of why it was not seaworthy was a question experts sought answers to, and they got it. They found that initially Vasa was designed to carry 36 guns, but it was sent to sea with 64. Also, the beautiful ornamentation contributed to its heaviness and instability. This and many other factors contributed to Vasa's sinking and, as a result, provided a cautionary tale for those designing and testing new technologies. Now, you may have thought the Baltic Sea had no more secrets. That was what scientists and maritime archaeologists thought until another wreck of a ship called Gribshunden was found. Gribshunden was a breathtaking floating castle that served as the royal flagship of King Hans of Denmark over 500 years ago until it sank in the summer of 1495. According to historical sources, the ship went down with a large contingent of soldiers and Danish noblemen, excluding the king who was ashore at the time. Shipwrecks from this period are exceedingly rare. Unless a ship is buried quickly by sediment, the wood is eaten away over the centuries by the shipworm, actually a type of saltwater clam. But these organisms don't survive in the fresh waters of the Baltic, and maritime archaeologists believe that much of Hans' vessel and its contents are preserved. That gave room for scientists and historians to examine the life of a medieval king who was said to travel with abundant royal possessions, not only food and clothing, but textiles, documents, precious treasures, weapons, and tools. More than that, though, the relic provides a unique opportunity to examine a state-of-the-art warship from a little understood period when a revolution in shipbuilding and naval warfare was reshaping geopolitics and transforming civilization. According to researchers, Gribshunden represents the end of the Middle Ages and the birth of the modern world. The story of Gribshunden is preserved in several chronicles, narrative histories written in Northern Europe in the 16th century, and in an eyewitness account by a young nobleman who survived the disaster. The accounts describe how King Hans, who reigned over Denmark and Norway from 1481 to 1513, sailed east from Copenhagen in the summer of 1495 toward Kalmar, Sweden, to attend a political summit. At that time in Italy, Leonardo da Vinci was starting work on The Last Supper. Europe was then emerging from the Middle Ages into the Renaissance. In Poland, Nicholas Copernicus was beginning his studies in astronomy. Dukes and kings ruled from giant castles, and every nobleman's wardrobe included a suit of armor. Across the Baltic Sea, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark had been ruled together under an agreement called the Kalmar Union for close to 100 years. Still, Sweden had broken away, and rebels there, led by a nobleman called Sten Sture, sought independence. Hans was on a mission to quell the dissent and revive the union by becoming King of Sweden too. According to the accounts, Hans took a suitably regal fleet of 18 ships, led by Gribshunden, which carried his noblemen, soldiers, courtiers, and even a royal astronomer. Unfortunately, they never arrived. Hans's flagship sank while anchored just north of Store Ekon. A 16th century account of Hans's life, only recently translated from Latin, narrated that the ship's gunpowder store accidentally ignited, causing a fire that consumed the ship so quickly that many on board perished in the smoke and flames. Others threw themselves into the water and drowned. The source also added that the fire happened while the king was attending a meeting of supporters, probably on Store Ekon, and other sources record the treasures that sank with the ship: silver, gold, charters and letters, with clothes, precious things, seals, and the king's best stores. Local divers came across the wreck's protruding timbers in the summer of 1971, but they had no idea of its historical significance. As a result, they only recovered the lead balls found nearby as souvenirs. One of the divers finally alerted local archaeologists to the wreck in 2001 after he found strange hollowed-out logs resting on the sea floor, carriages researchers realized that once held cannons. When artifacts were retrieved, it confirmed the ship's luxurious cargo. These items comprised a concreted lump of silver coins, high-quality chainmail, and a fine alderwood tankard incised with a crown symbol. A louse comb, plainly made from wood, was also found, attesting to everyday life on a cramped ship that probably housed more than 150 souls. More silver coins were found, along with a delicately stitched red and black suede slipper and stores of exotic spices. These included peppercorns, cloves, and a massive stash of saffron that dyed the water red when it was first uncovered, according to archaeologist Marie Johnson of Denmark's Viking Ship Museum. Another unexpected discovery on the ship was the multiple panels of elaborately decorated birch bark. One is embossed with a detailed peacock design, while the other shows an enigmatic beast resembling a unicorn. These findings were so well preserved that the design still held traces of gold paint. This led archaeologists to suggest that the king, who received audiences on board during his travels, made sure his chambers were well decorated with textiles and tapestries. However, these extravagances were not only for Hans's personal comfort. The king amassed on his flagship everything and everyone to impress the Swedish noblemen waiting in Kalmar. But Hans didn't rely on soft power alone. The threat of violence backed up the riches on display. And more discoveries were found, like a lint stock used in naval warfare to hold the burning fuse when lighting a cannon. A carved symbol on the handle, 2 vertical strokes, and a slanted horizontal may be an owner's mark, but the prongs are charred from use. It is one of several items that attest to Gribshunden's military might. The iron cannons have mostly rusted away, but 10 wooden gun carriages were recovered. These carriages range from 5 to 9 feet long and would have held swivel guns in the ship's bow, stern castles, and along both sides of the deck. The archaeologists also found a 13.5-foot-long gun carriage, far more significant than any other previously found, although archaeologists propose that it may be an early example of what's known from later warships as a stern chaser used to fire off the back. One historical source suggests that the Gribshunden sailed with 68 guns, which could be accurate based on the findings so far. That means the ship represented a revolution not just in ship design but naval warfare. Medieval sea battles were basically land battles carried out on a ship. The aim was to board an enemy vessel and fight hand-to-hand with swords and spears, but this wide-scale transition to bigger, carvel plank ships combined with the invention of explosive artillery fitted with huge cannons and guns was breathtaking. This change led ships to be able to destroy enemy vessels and battle almost exclusively from a distance, with a design that persisted with few changes until the 19th century. And while archaeologists kept exploring Gribshunden just above the ship's hull, one of the archaeologists found an intact crossbow more than 3 feet long. Showroom quality, he gushed. The weapon was so intact to the point that it still had the bowstring and all the decorations. I've never seen anything like it, the archaeologist said. Weapons experts were also thrilled about the discovery of this ship. Guy Wilson of the Royal Armouries, who specializes in early hand weapons, says that dated examples of crossbows from this period are practically non-existent. Moreover, the new find appears to be of a relatively advanced design and will be crucial for understanding the development of this quintessential medieval weapon. In fact, the team seems to have stumbled across a tool they never knew existed, but one of the archaeologists referred to it as a small arms locker. Months after the excavation, the team found 4 complete crossbows, components from several others, and several wooden arrows known as quarrels. These arrows also had their wood, leather, or feathered flights intact. The team also recovered the wooden stock from an arquebus or early handgun, and the suggestively carved handle of a bollock dagger, popular among sailors and used for penetrating an opponent's armor. Guy Wilson was so thrilled about these discoveries, he said, to have another dated example of European arms technology 50 years before the Mary Rose, a warship that sank in 1545, is very exciting. It's going to be amazingly important. The items will take years to study. For example, Wilson pointed out that it took 3 decades to complete the analyses of the artifacts recovered from the Mary Rose. Already, though, Gribshunden is providing a glimpse of warfare on the cusp of transition as hand weapons gave way to powerful artillery, and with that the capacity to wage war from a distance, a distinctly modern power that still shapes conflict today. These discoveries from the Baltic Sea are beyond surprising, and at the rate at which these discoveries are being made, there might be a lot more buried in the Baltic Sea, and perhaps there is some UFO or alien material that hasn't been discovered. What do you think? Let us know in the comments section below.